Joining Leaders Learning from Leaders podcast today is Dr. Darren J. Brown Hall, Superintendent of the Williamsville Central School District, a suburb of Buffalo, New York. He began his career in education as a mathematics teacher and then served Buffalo Public Schools in several leadership roles, including Chief of Staff and Interim Superintendent. Welcome, Darren.
Thank you very much for having me.
I'm wondering, for starters, would you tell listeners a little bit about the Williamsville Central School District and the start of your superintendency there?
Absolutely. So I'm ending my third year as superintendent in Williamsville, and it's funny to say that because the time has flown by, and I truly enjoy what I'm doing, and that's probably why it's flown by. But Williamsville is the largest suburban school district in Erie and Niagara County. We have approximately 9,600 students in our district. Our district is becoming more and more diverse, increasingly diverse, and we have 3 high schools, 4 middle schools, 6 elementary schools. So we have a total of 13 school buildings, and it's a great place, an absolute phenomenal place to be superintendent of.
As you look back, how do you think your previous leadership roles in Buffalo have influenced and impact the work you're doing in Williamsville?
You know, having so many positions in Buffalo, from assistant principal to principal of an elementary building, principal of a high school where there was competitive admissions. It was the Buffalo Academy for Visual and Performing Arts, and I became Associate Superintendent of Human Resources, then Interim Superintendent, Chief of Staff under Dr. Cash, so, you know, technically second in charge. There was nothing that I have not experienced, once getting to the superintendency in Williamsville. So I was very prepared, having so many different roles, leading a building, being a district office administrator, really helping to oversee the entire district and make sure it ran well, right? While Dr. Cash was able to be the superintendent and work with the board, I had a lot of opportunity to work with the Board of Education also. So it was great experience to transfer over to Williamsville.
My sense is that that's not real common for people going through the leadership pipeline, if you will.
Well,
that they get enough different things that when you get to the superintendency, you got that good feel, rather
right,
than a bunch of areas you need to go learn.
You're very right, and that's why I consider myself blessed and fortunate that I was able to have all those different experiences. But it was a combination of me seeking out different opportunities, and also leaders identifying me to take on certain roles that they thought I would be very effective in. So I was able to really be in a position to advance my career and be in a position where individuals will look at me and say, you'd be perfect for this. So when you get a tap on the shoulder, you want to absolutely take advantage of that.
So there's a line I use I want to test on you.
Okay.
I frequently tell people the way that you know you've been promoted is you've been given a job that you don't know how to do. And if you already knew how to do the job, it probably was more of a lateral move than a promotion.
Correct.
So it sounds like as you moved from each of those spots, you moved into a spot where I had to learn something
Absolutely
to be successful here, and that allowed you to add it to your skill set.
And it allowed me to stay fresh, right? So I enjoy a challenge. I enjoy coming into a new position, learning, and becoming quite good at it, right? And so that allowed me to really, really just build my resume so that any position, whether it be superintendent of Williamsville or any superintendent position, I was ready to take it on.
That's great. Well, as I was doing a little research for the podcast,
Okay.
I found a statement that you made that says, decisions made at the senior level impact student learning outcomes.
Absolutely.
And I'm wondering if you'd take a moment to expand on that.
So many times we look at our careers, at the profession of education, and we look, the more you climb the ladder, the more reach you have, right? The more your decisions that you make affect a larger number of people. So if you're a classroom teacher, any decisions you make affect the 30 students you have in front of you. When you become a building principal, any decision you make affects the 500 or 600 students you have in your school building. when you become superintendent, that's when you realize any decision you make will determine how well students are able to perform. Whether it's the curriculum you choose, whether it's researching start times for your school buildings like we're doing now, because we know what the research says about school start times. So let's use that research and shuffle some of our school start times so students are at their prime, their optimal learning time when they're in our school buildings. So we know that at the superintendent level, the decisions you make will have an immediate impact on students, not just on your current students, but on generations of students.
Wow. It's a heavy responsibility.
It is a heavy responsibility. That's why I take it so seriously.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's really a lens that you have to have on it as you're looking at that decision that causes you to see it much further out.
For sure. There's nothing in the role of the superintendent where you can be, or no times where you can be myopic, right?
Yeah.
So you really have to look at the entire system, how any decision you make will affect students, families, teachers, right? You have to take all that into consideration. That's why the most dangerous thing you can do as a superintendent is make decisions in a vacuum. That's why I'm fortunate to have a very strong cabinet that I work with also.
And my sense is that frequently there's a push on you for a decision coming from people who aren't looking through that lens that you're looking through.
All the time.
They're looking through a much more narrow one.
All the time. And as an educator, that's what we do. We educate. So those individuals, we take time and we educate them on everything that must be considered.
They've had a class from
Absolutely. Absolutely.
They didn't even sign up for credit, but they got the class anyway.
They got the lesson, indeed.
I pulled some words that you used that you said are important: visible, approachable, and hardworking. Mm-hmm. I'm wondering if you'd describe some actions that you take that you think communicate those terms.
So being visible. And at the board meeting last night, I'm very fortunate. I work with a phenomenal Board of Education, and they approved my new superintendent contract. And one of the things many board members said was that Dr. Brown Hall is visible. He's at almost every event we have. And in a district our size, it's impossible to be at almost every event. But I am. I try to be very visible in our school community because I want our students to see their superintendent. I want our families to see their superintendent involved in activities and appreciating what our students do, whether they're involved in sports, whether it's a high school musical, an orchestra concert. I want them to see that we appreciate them representing our district and being a part of our district. And so I enjoy being at the events. I enjoy interacting with families. It's just something that as a superintendent, it's important, but it's also important to the families. And I also attend a PTA or PTSA meeting from all of my schools. So whether it's Forest Elementary School, East High School, I attend at least one PTA or PTSA meeting a year because many of our parents don't want to come to a Board of Education meeting to talk to the superintendent, or they don't want to set up a private meeting. But if I come to a PTA meeting, they'll attend. We can have some conversation in a more intimate setting, and that's important because I do want to hear from all of our parents, whether it's at the board meeting or whether it's at a PTA meeting. And so hardworking, that's just something that has been instilled in me, and through our family. My grandfather always, he really instilled that in me. He said, get all the education you can and then make sure you work your tail off because that's one thing no one can take from you.
So the visible and the approachable go together.
They absolutely do.
And it's hardworking to make that. I mean, the hard working comes through from the moment you sat down and began to talk. I can hear that in everything that you described.
Absolutely. But being approachable also, that's why my husband, my kids, they don't like going to the grocery store with me. They don't like going to events with me because they know people will approach me. And I enjoy that. I enjoy having conversations about education. I enjoy having conversations about the Williamsville Central School District. I enjoy that. But I can see how it can get tiring from my family members.
And there's another phrase I found that you used that really caught my attention. And
Okay.
I want you to expand on that. It's you described the importance of listening with curiosity.
Indeed. And So one of the individuals I follow, I listen to, a lot of what she says resonates with me is Oprah Winfrey. And she said that during the presidential elections, she said it's very easy to say that someone is against you or they're not the same person you are, right? But try to understand where they're coming from. Listen with curiosity. And I've applied that to my life because having been raised by a strong African-American woman, my mother, and her sisters, my two aunts, and now my sister, they're all very strong African-American women. Now, my dad's there also, don't get me wrong, but my mom, her sisters, and my sister can never be wrong. They're always right. So what I try to do with them also is get them to listen with curiosity. So we all have a position in life, on many different topics. But if we listen with curiosity, because I want to know really where you're coming from, how were your opinions formed, right? What are you really trying to say to me? I always use the example. Someone may say, you know what, I think it's best that we leave for our trip the day after tomorrow. And then someone else may say, no, I think we need to leave the day before Sunday. Well, if you're listening, the day after tomorrow is Saturday, the day before Sunday. So listen with curiosity. Don't just keep trying to push your point. Really try to understand where the other person is coming from. There may be some common ground, or you may say, you know what, I always knew you were a jerk. I've listened with curiosity. But most of the time, you'll really try to understand where someone else is coming from. And then you'll get a better rapport. And it's all about relationships anyway.
Yeah, I've been working with the phrase of when I'm listening to someone, the question I ask myself is, what is it that I don't know? And that kind of rings when I read your piece about curiosity. There's something here that I don't know.
Absolutely.
And then I've heard you say where that takes you then is understanding.
It is.
And so whatever decision I have to make, I may be making a decision that the other person's opposed to, right, but I'm making the decision understanding
absolutely
where they're at and why they're there.
And I don't mind explaining my decisions either, because people want to know. If you've requested feedback, and we have many committees in our district, you request feedback, then you don't use my feedback. Why is that, right? So I want people to know you were heard. However, this is why we had to decide a certain way. And I always use the example of my boys. When I ask them what they want for dinner, Sean may say, I want pizza and wings. Micah may say, I want, steak and potato. Connor may say, I want gummy bears and sherbet, right? Well, we're going to have pizza and potatoes, right? So it's not that I didn't hear you, Connor. It's just that as the adult, as a parent, I have to do what's in the best interest of the family. The same thing goes with our school district. I hear all of the input, but I have to make the final decision with my team and do what's in the best interest of the entire school district.
Looking through that broader lens.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm wondering if you'd identify two areas that, looking forward, you're seeing you're needing to address within your district, and are they areas that you think are similar to other districts needing to address the same thing?
Absolutely. The first district, the first area of focus for our district, it's currently now and in the future, is our emphasis on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And every district has to take a real strong look at that, do an archaeology of their district, and figure out how you move forward to create intentionally inviting environments for all students that lead to a sense of belonging for every student. And we mention and focus on students a lot, but we need to do the same thing for our employees. Make sure that we're creating environments where our employees don't feel they need to leave anything at the schoolhouse door, whether it be their disability, their sexuality, their modern family makeup, right? And we want our students to come to school feeling safe, that they're able to talk about their same-sex parents, right? They're able to talk about their disability. They're able to talk about anything that makes them unique. We want to make sure that that's happening in our schools. Do we have room to grow in that area? Absolutely. Every district does. But what I do know is that there is no district that's homogenous. You always have some level of students who are just not going to be part of a certain demographic, right? But you have to make sure all students feel that they are appreciated for their diversity. We're looking at all decisions through an equity lens, and we're making sure that students have a sense of belonging. And by doing that, you are creating an inclusive environment in your district.
You just connected to a recent piece that I read about the mistake that's often made of looking at diversity without looking at inclusion.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
You can be diverse, but if people don't feel included in
Absolutely.
inclusion, and that's really the harder part to work on than the diversity part is.
It is, because you can have a diverse school district.
Yeah.
That's just a matter of counting up the numbers, right?
Yeah.
It could be diverse, but does it lead to that inclusion and ultimately the sense of belonging for your students? Do they feel, I belong here, I'm a part of this district?
And I guess only then do we really hit the equity piece.
Absolutely.
So they have that interconnection.
Absolutely.
Was there another area?
There is another area, and it's an area that we're going to be tackling very soon in our district. It's the removing of distractions from student learning. And we know that that is something that cell phones have done in our classrooms. They've created a distraction. So we're trying to use the 24-25 school year as a study year, figure out what the best research says. I've been talking to other superintendents that have put in place some form of a cell phone policy in their district, and we have cell phone policies at our high schools, at our middle schools. We want to get a consistent district-wide cell phone policy in partnership with our administrators union, our teachers union, our parent councils, our student governments, our superintendent inter-high advisory council. We're going to all get together and work together on what it looks like to have a cell phone policy that eliminates the distractions in our classrooms. Students are very aware of how much their cell phones are distracting them. However, it's important that we're all on the same page and we all agree, number one, they're a distraction. Number two, how can we make sure we have a policy that will be able to be enforced? And then number three, how do we still teach students the right way to use this technology? So that's something we'll be working on the 24-25 school year for implementation the 25-26 school year.
I'm just sensing a ton of research to be done and experimented with.
Absolutely, and some pilot programs.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, that's what I mean as pilot, because
Yeah.
I get the sense it's a case where we can't see some of the impacts. So
Correct.
It could look good up front, but as we implement it, we're going to uncover it. It's back to my question of what is it that I don't know?
Right. Absolutely.
There's something here I don't know.
And that's why we are going to take time and really use this entire year. On our district website, we've already set up the repository where we're to be depositing the cell phone research that we're going to be using to really guide and inform our policy. So, but that's why we don't, just implement, right, and say this is the procedure we're going to follow. We take time with this, so we want to make sure everyone is going to be on board and not just support it, but champion it.
I think I'm also hearing there's a education piece you're going to have to do there almost before you can involve the people in the decision-making process.
Absolutely.
They're going to have to learn.
They are, and that's why we want to share the research with
Yeah.
them. The same thing that we're doing for our school start time committees, right? They're sharing the research with our entire school community, so when we begin our focus groups in the fall, everyone will be on the same page.
I'm got a question to ask you about the responsibility that you sense you have in your role as superintendent now to create those district leaders who may be serving other districts in the future.
Absolutely. So Monday night of this week, our middle school principal, Dr. Jeff Jakluski, who is also an associate in the superintendent development program. I'm his faculty mentor. He was just appointed superintendent of the North Tonawanda School District.
Great example.
So it is a great example. But if we truly love kids and believe that all students should have quality teachers and quality administrators, we owe it to the profession to do that, right? So as I was an EOP student at Buffalo State University, and the motto was, we lift as we climb. I'm a very spiritual person also, my dad being, senior deacon, and we learned in church that to whom much is given, much is required. And it's really important that we have to give back. I have to. It's a responsibility of mine not to just be a good administrator, but to make sure that I'm developing great administrators also. So we know in our district we have a young administrative team, so we're also developing a principal preparation program because we want to make sure we're developing principals for our buildings. We have to hire 3 principals this summer for our buildings. We want to make sure we have top-notch leaders in all of our administrator positions, but it's incumbent upon us to make sure that that happens. We can't just sit back and hope they come knocking our door down, right? We have to make sure it happens. And I worked under Dr. Kreiner Cash in the Buffalo Public Schools, and to his credit, there's 7 or 8 of us that became superintendents under his leadership. So if I can do something like that, we all know to leave a legacy, you have to live a legacy. So if I can do something like that, I would consider myself accomplished also.
That's a great model for you to have had.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, it's been a pleasure talking with you. And as we move to close out, I'm wondering if there's any last thoughts that you'd like to share with both school leaders who are in the positions now, people in the superintendency, but for that group of people who the superintendency might be their next step.
Absolutely. And thank you for this opportunity. And what I would share is that you want to always keep learning. Always keep learning. Always stay curious. And if you're ever in a situation that, you say, this isn't the right situation for me, many times you may not be able to change the situation, but change the way you think about the situation. Think about what it's adding to your experience. What can you later talk about? How is this contributing to where you're going to ultimately end up in your administrative career, right? So every situation may not be ideal at the time, but think about how you can apply that to future situations and always continue to learn.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. This has been great. Thank you.